Thank you very much. My name's Tim Whitehead. I'm a lecturer in design at Aston University. And today I just want to summarise some of the work we're doing on utilising plastic waste to create new products using 3D printing in low-income settings. But I actually want to start by actually talking about the telephone, the regular old school classic telephone. And I think this leads nicely into where I think 3D printing is going and how we can use this in terms of a circular plastic economy and how we can build on that. So obviously the classic telephone back in the day required landlines, the landline phone. We required a lot of infrastructure to make that work, as we're all familiar with. But obviously we leapfrog, and I think a lot of the African countries, for example, have leapfrogged that. They haven't needed to invest in the landline infrastructure that Europe and America have. And we've leapfrogged that straight away and moved into mobile technology, which, as you're probably aware, means that people can access banking and loads of other services through their phone and a lot of the stuff we've been talking about today. And I think this fits quite nicely with where 3D printing is going. If we're looking at kind of leapfrogging technologies that can get to the poor, to the lower income in society more quickly. It is interesting to note that the world's poorest households are more likely to have a mobile phone than a toilet, according to the World Bank. And that was a few years ago, if you look at that. So there's real access to technology, and we don't need the same infrastructure access that we used to. So if we look at kind of manufacturing and making physical products, whether that could be a mobile phone or kind of consumer goods, whether it's cups or phones or whatever it is, typically they're made in one place. They're made either in Asia or China or in a manufacturing hub, wherever that is. And we use machines like this, like an injection molding machine. And we'll have a big factory, something like this. And then when we look at kind of global supply chains, this is just a map of shipping supply chains around the world. And we look at how much stuff is being shipped across the world all the time from our global factories. And we've all seen what happens when it goes wrong recently as well. So I think when we're coming back to 3D printing, I think there's a real opportunity here to have a distributed supply chain where we can actually make stuff locally at the source, and we can make products or parts that people actually want to have and need in that local community. And that's kind of what my work's looking at. And hopefully you'll see some examples in a second of how we do that. So wherever you are in the world, whether it's a little rural village somewhere or a big city, we can actually make products locally, hopefully using the local resource, in this case, plastic waste. So distributed manufacture, this is kind of what it sort of centers around. Like mobile phones, 3D printers are really versatile. The cost has come down significantly. And the important thing is that in terms of manufacturing, you can manufacture almost like a whole range of products without having to set up the same tooling and the expense that kind of traditional manufacturing requires. And they're lightweight, portable, we can move them around to any rural location. Okay, so, but I think it is worth noting, before we go into some case studies, that the technology is still relatively in its infancy, and 3D printing is not capable of high volume manufacturing. So when we're making a lot of one thing, it's very much more suited to bespoke one-off products, small scale production, and maybe higher value items, or where if you've got something where it's a product where something's broken down, you can print a replacement part. Okay, so I'm looking at this in terms of not to replace the mass manufacturing that we currently see, but to fill a gap where we can use sustainable local resources, i.e. plastic waste, to actually make customized products for our local community and add value that way. So this is where my project started, looking at, where can we put a 3D printer and what can we do with it? Okay. So the project that I kind of want to just share in some case studies with you about is called Circular Plastic. The aim is really to establish solutions to plastic waste in these low-income countries and to create new products that add value. Because plastic waste, as we've been discussing earlier today, there's a lot of plastic waste, and I've seen loads of great pictures and videos of people shredding plastic and building bricks and what have you. The value comes, doesn't it, by turning that into a product, turning it into a physical item a bag of shredded plastic waste is relatively low value, but a product that people can use has a significantly more value. So that's what I'm trying to look at, is trying to look at how we can do that. But also there's some underlying technology in terms of extrusion that we also need to get right. So we're kind of working with a number of partner universities and across Rwanda and Kenya and Nigeria in STEM cafes and co-creation hubs, kind of makerspace type places, to look at how we do that. So if we're kind of looking at a basic thing, and I'm sure this will be quite familiar with a number of you, in terms of how we get from raw plastic to a new product, we're looking at sourcing it, washing it, shredding it, drying, extruding it, and then 3D printing our final outcome. So we go straight from a plastic bottle through some shredders, as you've probably seen, and I think this is just worth just pausing on slightly. When we're looking at 3D printing, what we've been focusing on is actually locally manufactured 3D printers. Because what we're also really acutely aware of, when we start importing technology, so like importing a 3D printer into a region, that's all very well and good while it works, but as soon as it breaks, as soon as something goes wrong, you've almost, the whole printer, you're like, what can you do with it? Is there the supply chain to get the spare parts there? So we're really keen to work with like local 3D printers. That means there isn't a supply chain issue. If it breaks down, there's somebody, close by that can support and get that up and running again. And it can also be kind of maintained much better. These ones, this is a company in Nairobi, AB3D, African-born 3D printers, and they make their 3D printers actually from e-waste, which is really cool. So the little servo motors that you see on that, they come off 2D printers, kind of big photocopier type things, which is really nice. So it's this whole kind of circular economy to a larger scale. So we make sure we use local printers, and we use local plastic waste. We turn it into filament, and we print new products. And this is just one example that Tech for Trade, and they're based in Nairobi. This is a microscope, and some of you may or may not have seen this before, but it's a 3D printed microscope. It uses Raspberry Pi as its underlying, I guess, computer, and it plugs into a laptop. And it costs about $100. So it's equivalent of an expensive microscope. And there's a number of these that have gone out to schools in and around the area in Kenya as a part of a STEM education project, but also to kind of highlight, plastic waste and 3D printing and getting people involved in technology development, which is really cool. So that was kind of where everything started, and there's some nice kind of case studies of work going on. And the part of the project that we've been doing is actually, this last year or so, is actually working with local people to try and understand what they need. And I've got a number of products. These are the ones that we've developed with local stakeholders. And just really, I think what I just wanted to say, just show some of the breadth of the ideas that people are having, and what we might be able to do with 3D printing, okay? So we're working again, so we're in Rwanda, Kenya, and Nigeria. Those are the kind of countries we're working with. But we're creating everything from like a boat baler. So we identified that people in some areas, they have to navigate through these boats. They're kind of homemade, they're carved out of wood locally, and they often flood, they often take on water. And that was a local problem and a local need. And so the solution was, well, how about we build a little baler system that works off a Coca-Cola bottle, and there's basically a little kind of siphon pump in there, using the 3D printing to create something bespoke for that problem. And the same is with this sand dredging. So some of the community around Lagos are dredging sand, etc. Very, very kind of low income level here. And they were just having issues. And they said, well, actually, what we'd love is just a little adapter or something that we can stick on the end of our bucket to make it easier to dredge sand in this case. So we're trying to look at, and we might say that a lot of these projects probably aren't quite commercially ready yet. And whether or not you make a business out of this yet, that's kind of what we're kind of working on now. But hopefully you see how we can use 3D printing to start addressing local needs in quite a bespoke way, which is really interesting because we would never normally build like boat bailers in the millions because it's quite a specific issue to that community. Okay, another one was a fishing farm. We developed a fishing farm in Rwanda, looking at small-scale fishing production. And again, they were just looking for something to have modular fish that was more robust, little fishing net farm thing that was more robust and could be expanded as their business grew. And so we 3D printed these plastic buoys, basically, that were bespoke, and they worked with the bamboo that they were already using. Customized fruit picker. Fruit picking, again, this came from a Rwandan project. And again, they identified that they've got to pick a lot of, I think it's mangoes. And they wanted an attachment for the end of their stick, basically, to aid them in that process that had a kind of custom designed, very simple, but custom designed insert that enabled you to pull the fruit off correctly. I've just got two more examples. A customized machete peeler. So this was identified that when peeling I guess like root vegetables and food, people often use like machetes, which is great. They're really sharp, really quick. But there's a few issues in terms of chopping off too much of the produce and like with the skin and how high wastage, but also the safety and young people using it and things like that. So they said, well, actually, what would be really good is if we could have some sort of, peeler that goes on our machete, so that then it was much safer and easier to use. So we developed that. We 3D printed the peeler, and finally we've got this non-electric milk cooler, and this is for rural communities have scarcity of electricity, don't have fridges as such, and they want to keep their milk a little bit longer. So we developed with them it's kind of like a flask, I guess, but it uses a matrix inside, so a 3D printed matrix, which helps the water evaporate a little bit quicker and provides a natural cooling to help keep the milk lasting for a bit longer. And these are the sorts of products that we are starting to create using plastic waste to meet local need and to see where the business opportunities are. This was a first print of one of our fruit picker, and then we kind of had a final developed print that was in use. So I think where we're at the moment in this project, and hopefully this is just really a taster. This is just really a taster of what we're doing, and feel free to contact me or anything if you kind of want any more information. We can go to the Q&As later. But really, what we're finding is that distributed manufacture and 3D printing might be a really good way of opening the doors to small scale like enterprises and entrepreneurship, which we think really could actually play quite an important role in providing products to communities that they really need, while also using that plastic waste, adding value to plastic waste, and trying to be truly circular in the way we go forward. So hopefully that's interesting. I've got I don't know if I did the I've got a quick, it's a 1 minute little video. I don't know if I did my share sound thing. I'm just going to stop the share and just reshare again. Is that all right? So I can share the sound. And this will just summarize it in 1 minute. So hope you enjoy. Um, sorry, really. Next slide. Oh, my PowerPoint stopped working. I think that's it. Actually, that's all. That's all from me. I hope this is useful. And take questions later, I guess. Are we?
So fantastic. Thanks very much, Tim. For this is great. Really, it was really great. I need to engage, and I really enjoyed all these like 3D printing stuff. So I am now almost ready to go downstairs and 3D print some stuff. It was really cool.